Hey folks, how you doing? So let's go back into Draw Steel, right? So I apologize. It took a little while to circle back around to this. Had some Tales of the Valiant things to do, some job hunting to do. There's things going on in life, right? So yeah, let's take a look at the next three classes that are in this book, which is Fury, Null, and Shadow. And they were definitely interesting, right? As I kind of leaped through them. So let's take a look at the Fury first. Yeah, Fury. So Berserker, right? Basically, like Barbarian, Berserker, whatever one you would go with, right? Someone who loses control in battle for sure. And a couple things struck me about this character, right? As I kind of went through it. You know, there is three different flavors of this. Berserker, Reaver, and Stormwright. And, you know, I would say as I went through this, you get your ferocity, which is powering your abilities, right? This felt like one of the easier, maybe even the easiest, potentially, though we'll get to that in a second, characters to play, right? And I mean, come on, if you're a barbarian or something similar, right, you just hit things, right? That's generally what the characters do. So, sorry to all the barbarian mains out there if I'm simplifying your existence, including my wife, who kind of plays a lot of them. So, yeah, let's go. So, you get your ferocity the usual way, right? You get your victories. You're going to get a 1d3 added at the start of each of your turns. You take damage, you get some more. If you're winded or dying, you get another 1d3. So yeah, the more hurt you get, the more of this ferocity that you also get. Now, the interesting thing about this character is the more ferocity you get, the more powerful you are, right? So it's feeding into that same dynamic there. So again, you have three different flavors of Berserker here. So if you look on the next page, you have your Berserker, Fury, your Reaver Fury, and then you don't see the Stormwright here. The Stormwright gets its bonuses through its kit. Right, so really, if you look at this off the top, right, if you have, like, you know, if we were quickly, like if you're a berserker and you have 2 ferocity, then when you use a knockback maneuver, the force movement distance gains a bonus equal to your might score, right? So the stronger, the more ticked off you get, the more you're doing, right? Same thing with the Reaver. So on one hand, you want to, as a berserker, I keep saying berserker, but I should say Fury. As a Fury, you want to kind of build up how ticked off you're getting, because that's going to power your stuff up, and then let it go, right? And do your cool abilities and get that burst, right? Now you think about it, right? I mean, you're getting 1d3. Right? So each combat turn, you're getting on average, right, 2 Fury. Each time you take damage, that's going to be another. I should say each time you take damage. The first time each round you take damage, you get another one. So you're averaging at least 3 ferocity at the start of your turn. And then the first time you become winded, you get another, on average, 2 ferocity. But you know you're going to get at least 3 per turn. So it's not hard to get, you know, at least the first level here, you should be getting almost automatically, right? I mean, you spend a 1 on a 1d3, and then, I mean, you're a Fury, you're on the front line. Something is going to hit you. Right? Someone's going to swing at you, and you always get hit in this game. So you know you're getting 2 at a minimum every turn. you're going to get the first level of these charts just to start with, right? So yeah, easy enough. So you take a look at your kits here, and you know, touch will get the beast shape. We'll get to that in a second. That's part of the Stormright kits. You get a triggered action depending on which flavor or barbarian you get. And then when you get to here, right, you get some other little abilities. I mean, when you get to your signature ability, you just choose one signature ability. Okay. You choose one heroic ability, and you choose one 5-cost heroic ability, and then you're immediately in the second level. There's not many options here for your Fury in terms of what you're getting. It's probably the shortest list. It feels like the shortest list I've seen out of the ones so far. Not to say they're not powerful, right? I mean, you're doing some decent damage. All these attacks pretty much are melee, as you would expect, and yeah, you're doing some kick butt and taking names. But if you're looking for something simple to play, I would say definitely when you get into the Berserker Fury or the Reaver Fury, they're probably one of the easiest to play. There's not many options here. Now, if you're going for the other third option, right, which is the Stormright kits, which the Stormright kits are in the Fury section, not in the kit section, but that's okay. Not judging how they set up their book, right? So if you choose that other third Fury, this one is definitely has a little more meat to the bone, we'll say, right? Where basically you get an animal form with this, right? So you get an aspect of the wild, yada yada yada, and then you see here you can become either a basically a bear. You got a bear form, you got a crow. Well, there you go. You got a rat and you got a wolf, right? And each one of these has its own attack, right? And also has its own chart, depending on which one of these animal forms you end up picking. Let me stop bouncing around here and try and settle, right? So, you know, this one has a little more to it because you do pick up a form. It gives you another type of attack, right? And yeah, so I mean, this almost feels like if I was playing a druid back in 5e, right? I don't know how they did the druid in 5.5e, but in Tales of the Valiant, they nerfed the hit points that you as a druid would get in your wild shape form. So, because I mean, otherwise, wild shape was just like an infinite pool of hit points, just about for druids. So that got slammed. But yeah, with this, right, you get your bear form, you get certain bonuses and stuff like that. So this one, the Stormright, definitely has a little more meat. Not much more meat, but a little more meat if you're not trying to go super simple, at least in this person's opinion. So, so yeah, I mean, this is definitely cool if you want to be a frontline player. If you never role-played in a role-playing game before, taking one of the Furies would probably be one of my early choices to recommend to people versus some of the other things that are going on in Draw Steel. Okay. Let's go to the next one, Null. So Null is basically your monk, right, from 5e. But I really thought they really came across with a good twist on this, right? Because I would say, you know, the monk is probably one of the classes that probably needs some help, right? I don't think they were particularly powerful in 5e, and I would say with Tales of the Valiant, that is, out of all the classes that they buffed in Tales of the Valiant, that's probably the one that needs additional buffing. They didn't go maybe far enough with that particular class. They fixed the ranger, side note, but the monk, yeah, it needs a little more love and attention for sure. But that's a story for another day. So yeah, Null. So another fighter type, right? You get again 3 different flavors of monk. Oh, sorry, I was trying to use the right terms. Flavors of Null, right? And the interesting thing they did here, which is a cool twist, the monk is really leaning into psionic abilities with this monk, where you're not just perfecting your mind and your body, right? Whereas the other one is more your body and not so much your mind in 5e or Tales of the Valiant. So I thought that was an interesting way to go with this. So you get some neat psionic abilities with your monk. And I gotta say, I mean, I took karate. I got a black belt, stuff like that. I mean, in American Kempo. This is really kind of singing to me. It sounds like a neat twist on a fighter type. If I was leaning to take someone like that, I'm always a wizard, so I mean, But I like this. This is kind of cool. So discipline is what they call their what feeds their abilities here, right, as opposed to the other ones. So you get 2 to start every round, and then you gain some additional depending. Now you have something here. The first time each combat round, an enemy in the area of your null field uses a main action, you gain a discipline. So just a side note, right, you get this null field, which basically is you're putting some sort of negative ability on the creatures fighting in that null field, right? So you could have this gravitic disruption. The first time a turn a target takes damage, you could slide them 2 squares. Anytime a target starts their turn in the area they can't shift, any target starts their turn in the area can't shift, and so forth, right? So you want to make sure you have this field up around you when you're in combat so that you're getting additional discipline so you can beat these guys up. Because that's what you do when you're... I like that picture. It's a cool picture. You get a little shield here that you could use, or that you have as part of your ability. It's not a physical shield, but reducing attacks as they come in. Kind of feels like the monk ability, whether it's patient defense, or when you're redirecting arrows or stuff like that as part of a monk. So same theme, right? You have some level of using your discipline to soften blows or redirect them or whatever, depending on how you want to look at it as someone who is taking those kind of disciplines. So depending, again here, right, so you're choosing your tradition, so depending on the subclass you chose of a null, right, you have, again, depending on how much discipline you have, you will get certain abilities that power it, just like the Fury did, right? So an extra little bump as you hold in your discipline and then kind of burst it out. So it kind of feels, because of the, if we look at this versus the Fury, right, you were rolling a D3, so you had maybe a little bit more, the Fury's being powered maybe a little bit better than this Null is. I can't say I sat down and wrote it out mathematically, but this kind of feels that way, right? So it might take a little bit more to power him up than it did the Fury potentially. So yeah, lots of charts here. You get additional speed, which is, again, 5e or monk always used to go faster than everybody else, so you get that as well. And then each of your long rests, you can change what your augmentation is. So kind of similar to some of the classes we saw in the first video, you can pick one of these 3 and you'll have that for that day. And then when you long rest or super long rest, whatever you want to call it, you can swap it, right? So, I mean, here's one where you gain a +6 bonus to stamina. uh, and other cool stuff going on here, right? So depending on what you need. And then when you get into the abilities itself, again, it's lots of melee as you would expect for a monk-like character, but there's also a lot of moving going on as well. So some of it is here, the effect is that you can slide. Here's one effect you can shift. Here's one that's a grab. This is dealing extra damage to creatures around you. You get a taunted ability. What else? Here's some other ones. Here's a pull. Here's a push. Right? And so forth. Right? So you definitely, as you would expect with, with a monk-like character, you're not just, doing some nasty damage with punching, but you do potentially could move around a bit, right? And if you ever taken a karate or similar discipline, you do some of that. You're punching and you're moving at the same time, or a boxer or anything, right? This is nothing all that shocking, but it's spelled out a lot more here than say a fury or maybe a censor who is just there with their armor and shield or just doesn't give a crap and is just slashing things up. Again, most of these are more melee. There are a few here, like here's a burst ability to try and get more of an area effect, but they're not either one of these two characters that are really, for the most part, shooting at distance. Ranged abilities. Don't really have too many, if at all. So, and then here's your 5s, right? So again, dazed and slow. Here's one with weakened. So you have all kinds of different ways that you can really build this guy out. Now with this one, I'm kind of curious, right? So again, you're getting, go scroll back up here. Right, you're getting 2 signature abilities. You're getting, and then 1 for 3 discipline and 1 for 5 discipline. So a little more building out than the Fury, potentially. And yeah, I mean, some of these are nasty, right? I mean, you could do up to 16, plus, whatever your A is probably 2 at first level. And then you get the weakened condition. I mean, there's definitely some cool, nasty stuff going on here. But yeah, I like the idea of this character for sure. If I was going to take a fighter-like person so far, it would probably be this guy. Just for the flavor element of it for sure. So yeah, cool stuff, and definitely worth it. So let's go into Shadow. So I was really curious about Shadow, right? Just to see how they did a thief-like character, or if you want to say rogue, or whichever flavor you want to give here. So I was really curious about this one for sure. So again, you get 3 different subclasses, and you'll see, like, kind of like the Fury, this one feels like one that is maybe a little easier to play. At least that was my feeling kind of going through it. So you really have, like I said, 3 subclasses. You have Black Ash, which is basically your sneaking around thief. You got your Shadow, whatever. You got your Alchemy, which is more of an assassin. And then you have your Harlequin Mask, which is more of, they use infiltrated because you use like a spy or whatever word you want to use there. So, yeah, and not only that, but the Black Ash one has sorcery. So it has the magic ability. So, yeah, one's using your magic, one's using as your assassin, and one is your spy. Can I just say, for my 1E days, I miss having an assassin class. I just had to say that. So, if I was picking it, I even though I like magic, I might actually pick the assassin one. Just sounds cool. Insight is the name of the ability you use to power your cool abilities. Again, this is one that you get a D3, And then the first time you deal damage, incorporating one or more surges, you gain an insight. And then whenever you use a heroic ability, blah, blah, blah. If you have an edge or a double edge on it, whenever you use a heroic ability, it uses a power roll. That ability costs 1 fewer insight if you have a double edge or double edge on it. If the ability has multiple targets, the cost is reduced even if the ability has an edge or a double edge against one target. So, yeah, fun, so interesting there, right? That's definitely a different twist on getting your abilities, right? So, yeah, a reduced cost potentially in using your abilities. All right, let's zoom back out. So you're going to see here, there's really not much choice to begin with, right? Depending on what subclasses you're going to pick, that's going to basically tell you your first level college features. It's going to give you a triggered action, right? Get your kits, and then your signature ability, you choose one signature ability as opposed to 2 like we saw in the Null a few minutes ago, and then you're going to get 1 of each of the 3 and the 5. And there's not many here, right? I mean, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of text in here. Now, one thing that you would expect with a rogue-like character is usually someone is working with you, or you're supplementing someone being there, right? So you can see here, you can make these attacks, but here, like if one ally is within 5 squares of the target, gains 1 surge. Here's one here, if any allies adjacent to the target, as long as you have 1 or more allies within 5 squares. This is like the oddball one, none of your allies are adjacent. And shift into any square. So again, it's a lot of maneuvering and also being in the vicinity of your comrades, as you would expect. And again, you're done, right? There's not many here. You do have a few more 3s, but I mean, for a 5 ability, there's only 3. I will say, I had to point out somewhere in here, was it? Well, here's one that is just nasty. I thought I saw another one earlier. Maybe the Null had it. I'll go back and see. But you're spinning a D6, 2d6, doing 16 damage, plus your A ability, which is probably +2 at first level. Holy crap, right? So I mean, that could be potentially, right? 12 and 16 is 28, like potentially 30 points of damage. That's gotta be the nastiest attack that I've seen so far. Let me get my head out of the way here and blow this one up. Right? The coup de grace, coup de gras, whatever. But holy whatevers. Right? There's some nasty stuff here. And this one's actually a potentially range attack. Melee 1 or ranged 1 creature. Yeah, so if this dude has 5, man, and he has that could be really, really nasty. This one as well, right? 100 throats. Like, it doesn't look so much, but you're shifting up to your speed, and then you're rolling, make 1 power roll that targets 3 enemies who came adjacent to your move. So you're moving around and, you know, like running between targets, and you're potentially doing so many at once, right? And then over here you have one that is giving weakness as well. Here, friends with me, cute. So you're doing damage and you're giving them weakness at the same time. But that has to be the most damage I've seen so far coming at first level. And man, I guess if you look at the other ones, that could really be nasty. But again, this feels like a one again that you could give to a beginning player, right? Someone who's not used to playing RPGs before. There's not a lot of choices here, and as part of your ability, you are likely to be near your comrades where they can help you. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a cool thing. You go through here, again, you'll see lots of, kind of like the Null a little bit. There's a good number of shifts and surges and so forth as part of your ability. So it feels like a little bit more than the Fury, but again, not many options, right? Or not many different flavors. And yeah, I think that's it. So we got 3 left. We got Tactician, Talent, and Troubadour. They'll be interesting as well. I'm looking forward to the Talent, since that's another magic type, and one of my games where I was playing DMing 5e, one of the characters was using a 5e talent by MCDM. So I'm really kind of curious to see how much this one differs for the one they created for 5e. So we'll see that next time. With that, coming up to the Labor Day holiday, have a good long weekend, and maybe I'll try and crank out the last one during this time off, just to get that out of the way and see what other things we can do with Draw Steel later on.